Morning came too bright. I woke disoriented. The ceiling too far away. The mattress too soft. And for one terrible second I couldn't remember where I was or why Theo wasn't pressed against my side the way he always slept. Then I saw him cross-legged at the foot of the bed, wide awake, staring at me with the particular intensity only a 5-year-old fully recovered from a fever and bursting with questions can manage. "Papa, you were sleeping funny." "Was I?" My voice came out rough. I sat up, and my hand went automatically to his forehead. "Cool. Normal." I could have cried from relief alone. "I feel good now." He said it like he was reporting weather. "Can we stay another night?" "Theo, please." His eyes did the thing I had never once in 5 years been able to say no to. "Just one more." I didn't answer him. I didn't know how to explain that staying wasn't something people like us got to do, that gratitude had a shelf life, that we needed to leave before we became a burden, before whatever kindness this man had shown us last night curdled into something else, the way kindness from alphas always eventually did. I was still deciding how to say any of that when someone knocked. Damian stood in the doorway in another perfectly tailored suit. Like the barefoot, disheveled man from 4 in the morning had been someone else entirely. Only his eyes gave him away. They went straight to Theo, checking the way they had all night. "He looks better," Damian said. "He is. Thank you. For everything." I stood, already reaching for the same worn hoodie I'd arrived in, folded neatly on a chair. Someone had dried it. "We'll be out of your way within the hour." Something crossed his face. Gone before I could name it. "There's no rush." "There's always a rush." I said it flatter than I meant to. "You've done enough. More than enough. We don't want to overstay dash." "Papa, I want to stay." Theo's voice, small and certain, cut straight through whatever argument I'd been building. He'd climbed off the bed and was standing close to Damian's leg, looking up at him with the same open trust he usually reserved only for me. "Can we stay, Mr. Damian? Please." I watched something soften in Damian's face that had no business softening that fast for a child. He'd known less than 12 hours. "That's up to your papa," Damian said, crouching down to Theo's height. "But I'd like that too." Theo turned to me with the full weight of his best pleading look, and I felt my careful plan to leave start cracking at the edges. He didn't ask again. He simply had the housekeeper set 2 more places at breakfast, had someone bring a small pile of clean clothes, left over from a nephew's visit, that fit Theo suspiciously perfectly, and made no further mention of us leaving at all. I told myself I was staying for Theo, that the fever, the exhaustion, one more day of proper food wouldn't hurt him. I told myself a lot of things that week. Theo, for his part, decided within 2 days that Damian belonged to him personally. He followed him through the house with the devotion of a very small, very determined shadow into the study, where Damian would sigh and let him help stack papers into piles that meant nothing. Onto the veranda, where Theo narrated increasingly elaborate stories about dinosaurs while Damian, to my genuine shock, actually listened. Into rooms I was certain Damian didn't want a child touching anything in, and yet somehow, Theo touched everything and Damian never once told him no. "You don't have to entertain him," I said one afternoon, finding them both on the study floor, surrounded by what appeared to be an entire fleet of small wooden dinosaurs I hadn't seen before. "I'm not entertaining him." Damian didn't look up from the T-Rex Theo had solemnly placed in his hands. "He's telling me this one is misunderstood, not evil. I'm taking notes." "Where did the dinosaurs come from?" "No idea." His face gave away absolutely nothing. "They were probably always here." "Damian. This house did not have a box of wooden dinosaurs in it 2 days ago. You'd be surprised what this house has." He still hadn't looked up. Theo was now explaining, at length, why the Stegosaurus and the T-Rex were secretly best friends despite everyone assuming they'd be enemies. Perhaps I've simply never had a reason to notice them before. I didn't push it, but I noticed the way I noticed everything now. The way his voice changed when he spoke to my son, lower, gentler, none of the coldness the rest of the world seemed to see in him. It was the shoes that started it. Theo's only pair, the ones he'd had for 8 months, a full size too small, the sole peeling at the toe, had been quietly replaced with a new pair sitting by the door. Good ones. Expensive ones. From the look of the box, discarded not quite well enough in the kitchen bin. I found Damian in his study and set the box on his desk without a word. He looked at it, then at me, entirely unbothered. They needed shoes. His were falling apart. I know his shoes were falling apart. I was going to fix that myself. With what? The question wasn't cruel. That was almost worse. It was simple, factual, the way he said most things, and it landed exactly where he probably hadn't meant it to. With my own money, I said, quiet and sharp. The way I've done everything for 5 years. I don't need you buying my son things behind my back like I can't. That's not what I dash. I know what it looks like to you. Charity. Something small you barely noticed spending. My voice was shaking now and I hated it. Hated that he made me feel this exposed without even trying. But it's not small to us. Nothing you do here is small to us. And I can't just let you keep dash. I stopped. Because I didn't actually know how to finish that sentence. Damian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice had lost its usual flatness. You're right. He said it simply, no defense in it at all. I should have asked you first. I wasn't trying to make you feel small. I saw a child who needed shoes and I have the means to solve that in 5 minutes. And I didn't think past that far enough to consider what it would cost you to accept it. I hadn't expected him to just agree. I'm not used to people apologizing. I admitted, quieter now. I'm not used to apologizing. Something almost like a smile. We're both out of practice, it seems. I found him on the veranda after Theo had finally gone to sleep, still awake despite the late hour. A glass of something amber untouched on the table beside him. Can I ask you something? I said before I could think better of it. Always. Why does any of this matter to you? Strangers you found on the street. I wrapped my arms around myself against the night air. Men like you don't usually dash. Men like me. He repeated it, almost tired. You've decided who I am already. Haven't I been proven right so far? Came out harsher than I meant. He was quiet for a moment, looking out at the dark garden instead of at me. I built all of this alone, he said eventually. Every part of it. I told myself that was enough. That I didn't need anyone. That wanting people close was a weakness I'd trained out of myself a long time ago. He turned to look at me then, and there was something unguarded in his face I hadn't seen before. Then I watched a man shield his son from the rain with his own body, in the middle of the worst night of his life, without a single moment of hesitation. I haven't been able to stop thinking about it since. I didn't know what to say to that. I didn't trust myself to say anything at all. I'm not asking you to trust me, he said, quieter. I know what it looks like, an alpha with money being generous. I know exactly what that's meant for people like you before. I'm only asking you not to decide the ending of this before it's begun. The garden was very quiet. Somewhere behind us, in a room with a nightlight shaped like a star, my son was sleeping safer than he had in years, because of this man's choice to stop his car in the rain. I'm not deciding anything, I said finally. I'm just careful. I know. He almost smiled. I'd be worried about you if you weren't. 2 weeks in and I still counted the days. Not out of fear anymore, or not only fear. Out of habit. Out of 5 years of learning that nothing good lasted longer than you could count on one hand, so you'd better keep counting. Theo had stopped counting entirely. He'd claimed a seat at the breakfast table like it had always been his. He'd started correcting Damian's dinosaur facts with the confidence of a small tyrant. He'd stopped waking up in the night asking if we had to leave yet. I hadn't stopped. I just hid it better. You do that thing, Damian said one evening, watching me from across the study while Theo built an elaborate blanket fort out of what looked like very expensive throw pillows, where you look at all of this like you're waiting for someone to take it away, because someone usually does. I hadn't meant to say it that plainly. It came out before I could soften it into something safer. Damian set down whatever he'd been reading. Someone specific? I could have deflected. I'd gotten good at deflecting, 5 years of good at it. But something about the quiet of the room, the safety of Theo's laughter muffled under a fort of pillows, made the old walls feel less necessary than usual. Theo's father, I said. If you can even call him that. Damian didn't say anything. He just waited, which I was slowly learning was its own kind of question. I was 19. He was older, an alpha. Seemed dash. I stopped, searching for the word. Safe. That's the joke of it. He seemed safe. Attentive. Like I mattered to him. I wrapped my arms around myself. An old habit I couldn't break. The moment I told him I was pregnant, all of that disappeared. He said it wasn't possible, it was his. Then he said if it wasn't going to be his problem. He had people make sure I understood not to come back with it. Made sure how? Money to disappear quietly. A warning underneath it, in case the money wasn't persuasive enough on its own. I said it flatly, the way you say something you've said enough times in your own head that it's lost its power to cut you fresh. I took the money. I'm not proud of it. But I had nothing, and I was about to have less than nothing. And I told myself it was for Theo, not for me. It was for Theo, Damian said quietly. That doesn't need defending. It ran out faster than I thought it would. By the time Theo was 3, we were on the street. I looked up at him then, daring him to react the way people usually did, with pity, or worse, with the particular disappointment of someone recalculating what they thought of you. So when you ask why I count the days, that's why. Because the last time an alpha looked at me like I mattered, it cost me everything the moment it became inconvenient for him. Damian was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke, his voice had none of its usual composure. I'm not going to pretend I understand what that took from you, he said. But I need you to know I'm not him. I don't know how to prove that to you except by staying, and continuing to stay, for as long as it takes you to believe it. That's what he said too. In the beginning. Then I understand why you don't trust words. Something shifted in his face. A kind of resolve I hadn't seen before. So don't. Watch what I do instead. I didn't answer him. I didn't know how to answer him. But something in my chest, something that had been clenched tight for 5 years, loosened by some small, stubborn fraction. He told me about his own family 2 nights later, unprompted. Like my honesty had unlocked something in him he'd been carrying alone for a long time. My father built this company from nothing, he said, standing at the window with his back to me, watching the garden. He also believed love was a liability, something that made you weak, made you easy to exploit. He made sure I understood that early. Understood how? By making sure I never got attached to anything he could take away. His voice was very even, the way mine had been telling my own story flat because flat was survivable. A dog when I was 7. Gone within a month, the moment he noticed I loved it. By the time he died, I'd learned the lesson well enough that I stopped needing him to teach it. That's why the house is so empty, I said quietly. Even with all of this, it's empty. It was. He turned to look at me. Until 4 in the morning, 2 weeks ago, when a stranger screamed my name in my own hallway because he trusted me enough to. I didn't know what to say to that either. There was a lot, it turned out, that this man could say that left me with nothing to say back. The trouble arrived on a Thursday, dressed well, announced by nobody, standing in the foyer like she owned it. Vivian. Damian's voice had gone cold in a way I hadn't heard directed at anyone since the night we met. I don't recall inviting you. You never do. She was beautiful in the sharp, expensive way that made you feel underdressed just standing near her. Her eyes moved over me once, thoroughly, cataloging everything. The borrowed clothes that still didn't quite fit right, Theo's small hand in mine. So the rumors are true. Whatever you came to say it and go. She looked at me a moment longer, then back at him. Can we speak alone? Damian glanced at me. I took the hint, and Theo's hand, and stepped into the hallway just out of sight, close enough to still hear. Send them back to wherever you found them, Vivian said. Once she believed the door had given her privacy. Give them money, if it makes you feel better about yourself. But get them out of this house. No. Her composure slipped, just slightly. Our families arranged this, Damian. Everyone assumed dash. You assumed. Our fathers assumed. I never agreed to any of it. His voice was flat, final. I sat through a dozen dinners because refusing outright would have cost my father a merger. He wanted more than he wanted my opinion on the matter. That's the entire truth of what we were. It was never anything else. That's not fair. It's not supposed to be fair. It's supposed to be true. A pause heavier than the last. I never gave you a single reason to believe there was more between us than a business arrangement neither of us chose. If you spent years waiting on something I never offered, I'm sorry for that. But it doesn't give you a claim on my house, or on the people in it. Theo, who had wandered closer than I'd noticed, close enough to hear more than he probably should have, tugged on Damian's sleeve, small face serious. Mr. Damian. His voice was very solemn. Are we gonna have to go away? Because of your girlfriend. Something in Damian's whole posture softened the instant he looked down at him. Never, he said. You're not going anywhere. And she's not my girlfriend. Vivian's mouth thinned at that, at being written out of the room so plainly. By a 5-year-old's question no less, but she said nothing further. She simply gathered herself and left the way she'd arrived, though with considerably less certainty than before. The silence after the door closed felt enormous. Damian I started. Don't. He turned to face me, and whatever coldness he'd shown her was gone, replaced by something almost like fear. Don't you dare use this as your reason to run. I wasn't going to. You were thinking about it. I watched you think about it. I didn't deny it. I'm not trying to cause problems for you. For your company, your name . You are not a problem. His voice cracked slightly on the word, the first time I'd heard anything crack in him at all. You are the first thing in this house that has ever felt like it mattered more than the company. I will not let her or the board or anyone convince you otherwise. Theo looked between us, and then, with the particular seriousness of a child who has decided a matter is settled, said, Good. I like it here. So do I, Damian said, quiet enough that I wasn't sure he meant for me to hear it. I heard it anyway.